Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the podcast. My name is Wes, and today I got my new friend Corey with me. Corey, you want to give us a brief introduction?
Hey, what's up? I'm Corey. I'm a comic book artist. Uh, Worked on a dark fantasy comic called Kozor, and now I'm working on a sci-fi comic called Andromenoids.
Mhm.
And yeah, just been doing comics for a while.
And as you can see from what's on screen, this guy's got some skills. So we're going to be looking at some of his art today, and then we're also going to look at some of our inspirations and talk about their work. But first, let's go through some of the stuff it is that you have here, man. Because we were talking a little bit before we started recording about your process. You're using Clip Studio.
Yeah,
Is this so? I'm assuming this is from the sci-fi book that you're working on.
yes, this is the sci-fi one, Andromenoids.
I mean, it looks fucking awesome, man. I shouldn't have said that on YouTube. I think that's gonna get something in the algorithm. Damn it, I'm
It'll
gonna
be
have to
fine.
edit that. I hate having to pay attention to the algorithm stuff. Anyway, um, so tell me about your work, man. Like, how did you get into doing comics?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always just been into comic books in general. I loved artists like David Finch and their work on like Batman and stuff, and sort of wanted to do that. Um, well, this is like the original Kozor, so it's
Oh,
a bit more
okay.
inspired by David Finch. It's not the remastered version,
Oh,
but
well, okay. Did you color this whole thing too?
but basically, yeah.
You inked it and colored it?
So yeah, that was colored in Photoshop and Clip Studio still. So I had done
Oh,
like traditional pencils a long time ago, but ever since I went digital, I've always stayed at that.
do you how long does your process take for you to get this level of color on a piece? Like how long did that book take you?
Oh, Kozor, oh man, took me a very long time actually, because I had been doing it like it was my first book. It was like I think 5 years all up or something, because we remastered it for Indiegogo, where I had my brother Clayton go over the line work and I recolored it all.
Okay.
So it was a
So
fair while, but I learned a lot from it.
so it was one of those things where like as soon as you finish the book, you realize you've made so progress since the beginning of the book that now
Yeah,
like I have to go back and redraw it because otherwise it looks terrible.
yeah, heck yeah. I mean, I'd actually started a fair way into the second Kozo book,
Mhm.
and I think I had lost like a job in a call center, like right before all the COVID stuff hit. So I was just talking to my brother Clayton. I'm like, what do I do to make money? And then
Mhm.
we're like, well, why don't you put Koza on Indiegogo and see how it goes? And I just wasn't confident with the level of art. Like I thought I was doing much better art in the second
Mhm.
Koza book.
Mhm.
And then Clayton offered to sort of help remaster the line work while I redone all the colors. And that's how that all worked out. And then I got to like this point in Andromenoids where I was like even better at colors. And so I decided to do cleaner line work with the using more of the colors in it.
So whenever you put Kozar on Indiegogo, it was kind of a sink or swim situation. Like you pretty much this pretty much had to work or
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's like I had just lost a job
yeah,
and I wasn't sure what to do.
yeah.
So we decided to see how Indiegogo went. And then I sort of like introduced to like Comicsgate, which was like a big Twitter community and everything.
Mhm.
And I found a lot of commissions through there. I worked on Rob Arnold's book, doing colors for that as Replicator.
Okay.
And then I've worked with people like B.A. Turner and
Hmm.
like other like character designs, different pinups. So I've just managed to survive basically since then doing comics.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to do this sort of stuff and make any kind of money with it. It's not
Yeah,
an easy road to go down, but like we were talking about before, we're so lucky that this is the path that we're on, because otherwise there's so many other obstacles when it comes to doing music or writing a book. Um, I think that doing visual art stuff like this might be the most. It's not the easiest, but it's more commercially viable than, like I said, writing a novel probably.
yeah, heck yeah. And it's very fulfilling to do, very fun to
Yeah.
do. And yeah, like, man, I remember having to work in a call center and it was just brutal. Like, it's more just like you're a little pawn in a big company. No one really cares about you. It's a hard job. And I just wasn't good at it. That's why I got fired. So, and then
Yeah.
I just
Well,
landed on comics.
yeah. I worked at a call center too, and that's the way that it is. It's like it drains your soul so much that there's a part of you that's almost like, I want you to fire me. I want you to fire me so that I
Yeah,
can.
pretty
I
much.
don't have to. I have an excuse not to come in here because this is killing my soul.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, I remember being very like scared to be fired because I was like worried about my income.
Mhm.
And I was like, I wasn't even making that much money there, but it's kind of like I felt like I was almost dependent on the system. And then when I was out of the system and I found out I could do comics, it was just so much more freeing, basically.
Mhm.
So,
And the limits of what you do is like, the other thing that I think is really powerful about creative stuff that doesn't get talked about enough is that it's all leverage. You can put 1,000 hours into something, but you can put a lot of work into making something,
yeah.
and you can either get no return or you can get like an insane amount of return, right? It depends on the way it is that you go about it. That's how it is with something creative, because um, it's all about leverage, especially now. Like if you can
Yeah.
build an audience around something and you can be consistent with that, which is what I think an audience building really is just being consistent, putting stuff out and trying to genuinely connect with people, like I'm doing on
Yeah.
this
Heck
podcast.
yeah.
Then it just naturally starts to form around what you're doing. And once it is that you have that, you basically are your own publisher now. Like you
Yeah. Pretty
don't
much.
you don't need a company that's going to come in and try to like censor what you're doing, or trying to take control, or trying to own your property, you know?
Yeah. Heck yeah. I definitely do not like censorship. So I'm like a big fan of like Berserk and stuff because I feel like artists like that just stay true to their vision without worrying about censorship or anything. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Kentaro was a huge inspiration to a lot of us, because he
heck
was
yeah,
like, he was such a his world is so like completely fleshed out, and it's completely chaotic and so creative. You can tell it has that something in it.
yeah,
It's like it's coming. It's like he's channeling something. It's not even, it's not just him. It's like there's something else there.
yeah, heck yeah. I mean, it was just an amazing book. It like when you're watching the show or reading the manga, it gets to certain points where you're like, hits you on a deeper level than
Mhm.
like maybe like a generic superhero comic would hit you. Like there's
Yeah.
points in Berserk where you feel like going berserk, when you see like a character die or what happens to them, and
Yeah.
so that's what makes it great. And I feel like censorship or like political
Correct.
correctness
hmm
in like comics, it's like it kills the drama and that emotion and the energy in it. Basically, doesn't say true to the vision either.
Yeah. As soon as you, that's the whole thing with like the political correctness and stuff like that is like, if you're thinking about what the audience is going to do before you do it, then like you're not really involved with the work that you're doing, right? Like
Yeah,
if you want to create that art that has like that unspeakable quality to it that like Frazetta tapped into, that Brahm or Geiger or any of these people tapped into, like there's a part of your brain that just has to shut off, and that part is like caring what other people think about what you're doing, you
yeah,
know?
exactly.
And if
Yeah, and I feel like if you're not really keeping true to your own vision, and it's like without the money or anything, then what's the point of doing it? It's like my Kozor book. Like even if it sold like nothing, at
Mhm.
least I would still have a copy of it. I'd still have my own book that I created that I can look on back years from now. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, like I feel like if you're creating something that's specifically for someone else, especially to be politically correct, like without the money, there's no point to it in a way.
Yeah, and you can tell that the people who are making it, because this is the other thing that I think is really interesting about art is that you can be somebody who works at a call center and you can do it
Yeah,
half-ass and you can still make money at it, right? You can
yeah,
you can do that job half-ass. Same thing with being an accountant. You can do it half-ass and you can still make a living at it. With art, especially with the comic books and stuff like that, because you put so much time into it, you basically got to give it everything. You got to give it your balls, you got to give it your heart, you got to give it
yeah, yeah,
everything. And if you're not giving everything to it, then the quality is not going to be there. And that's what it is that you see in this like super political correct like reinterpretations of whatever, like Lord of the Rings or whatever it is that they're trying to ruin next. Um,
yeah,
it's uninspired. You can tell that the people that are doing it are just there to collect a check.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, they don't even like. I think a lot of Marvel comic creators they just hire like bloggers and stuff to write it or something. You know, it's like they don't even care if they're like actually talented, sort of like studied up on these things because yeah, it's just bad. And
Yeah.
like, man, I remember like there's just these panels with like Miss Marvel like reading text messages or in like a comic, and I'm like, yeah, like comics is like dead in that sort of stuff. Like
Mhm.
in the indie comics or like manga, it's like they're trying to actually create a vision, create something worthwhile to read.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. That's yeah. Yeah. The stuff that's coming out now, the mainstream stuff, is just it's so not. It's so missing the mark. Like people are so. I feel like people are so over it. They've pretty much killed the superhero genre for the next like decade with how many terrible movies that they've put out. You
Yeah,
know.
heck yeah. And it's like, man, I feel like some of them at like a point in time are almost proud of like going against the fans and being like, yeah, we're going to show you how it's done, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like they're destroyed now. Like, I think I was watching Tim Pool, like a
Oh yeah.
clip from Tim Pool this morning, and he's saying like Disney like admits that their political like stuff just isn't working anymore in their
Mhm.
movies and whatever. So they're trying to walk it back. like a walking back like Snow White movie and everything. But it's probably too late for them. Like they kind of destroyed the reputation.
Yeah, and that's what seems to happen with like with any kind of organization, right? It's like you have the people that start it and that build something, and it's like a brand new idea. You know, like it's so unique that it generates all of this attention and all this revenue and whatnot. And it becomes like the industry standard, like Star Wars or something like that. And then it gets to a certain point, and then you have like the bureaucrats and the middlemen that try to come in and try to like finagle their way into it and be like, no, 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 wait, let us control it. You know,
Yeah,
like somehow they wrangle control away from creative people or whatever, and then they take it and they just shit all over it. You
yeah,
know?
heck yeah. And it's like even something like Star Wars, which is like so unique, they
Mhm.
managed to like mess that up somehow. Like I don't feel the same way about Star Wars as I used to anymore, which is kind of sad. But
Yeah.
like George Lucas, it was his vision, like all the movies originally. But when they
Mhm.
brought out the Disney stuff, it just sort of changed it up, or wasn't the same impact.
Yeah, they were going for member berries, basically, is what they were going for. And I think George Lucas has talked about this in some of his interviews that like he pitched them on this idea of like, you know, he's gonna. I think he was gonna write them, or he was gonna be a part of creating them. And Disney execs were like, "Yeah, of course, you know, just sign this paperwork right here, and you'll be a part of it." And once he had signed the paperwork and they got everything going, they basically just cut him out of the whole process. And they were like, "We don't need you anymore."
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And it's so sad to lose like something you created to that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It's like it's not personal anymore. It's just a product sort of thing for someone
Yeah.
else.
But he was a genius, really. When you look at the way that he set everything up, he was such a genius because like he was one of the first guys to realize that pop culture was going to be this kind of transmedia thing. Like he had the movie coming out, but then he also had novelists writing some novels for it. I think before even or when the
Yeah.
first movie came out, and then he had the toys. Like the toys were huge when we were younger, you know,
Yeah, heck yeah, I imagine they were.
because they were like,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I I'm like only 29 at the moment, so I
Oh,
think the first movie came out a bit before me. But like
oh,
that's what they always talk about. It's like the toys were much bigger than the actual movie. So
totally. The toys, I couldn't even, I couldn't imagine how much money the toys themselves made for him. But it was like it was such a huge deal that he had created this whole world, and then he was expressing it in all these different ways. You know what I mean? Like you had the collectible toys, you had the books, you had the
yeah,
films, and and that's basically set up the standard for the way that everybody does things now, like Disney, all of that. You know?
yeah, heck yeah. And that it was like so much cooler back then, I reckon.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the stuff that we have here from your work, and then we'll look at some of our inspirations and talk about that. I like
yeah, heck
the
yeah,
the cool lighting that you're putting on this character, and it feels like there's like some moonlight that's coming down and striking her from the front, and then you have the fire in the background that's pushing her forward. So is that like
yeah.
I know that's intentional, but like is that how you think about lighting? You think about it like you know, typically we have like a warm and a cool, right? And so you're playing off that dynamicism between the two.
Yeah, heck yeah. I think like that sort of like color contrast, complementary colors is you need to know a lot about that to do good colors, I reckon. Like yeah, if you don't know that sort of stuff, I don't think like your works as appealing in
Hmm.
general. So yeah. And with the colored lighting, so that was one thing I learned with my new method, was it's very
Hmm.
important to have like colored lighting, because I remember like a great artist, John Malin, saying a lot of things that bother him about other colorists is when they do their bright highlights and just like pitch white, and he
Hmm.
usually has to go over it and fix it up. And so that was something that like caught my eye, because I'm like, colored lighting in general, I reckon for comics works pretty well. Like it makes it so much more interesting.
Hmm.
So, and
Oh wow,
yeah,
this
this
is
is
the
like my line work for it. So I think I told you before the show, I actually used the darker pencil tool, which
okay.
I kind of made into like inks. So
This is the dark pencil tool on Clip.
yeah, pretty much. Like if you zoom
What?
right in, you can sort of tell it's like a rough pencil sort of thing.
Actually,
But I just,
I wouldn't have thought that. Actually, I would have thought that was just a pen because I don't really see the. Usually, the pencil ones have like a texture to them, like an opacity texture to them.
yeah, yeah.
So, did you just you turned up the opacity on it or something, or like I don't understand how you got that effect.
Yeah, I actually changed it in, I think, the tools menu, where I turned up like the darkness of it or something to make it
Okay.
look more like inks. And I just found it made the lines and line weights much easier to do for this style.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah.
Damn. Yeah, that's really awesome. That's a ton of detail. The other thing that I noticed about it that it, I want to mention that on my YouTube channel, I have like this tutorial series where I do like it's called Illustration Masterclass. And we basically
Yeah.
just I go through and I break down like the different design elements or design compositional choices that are going on and in somebody's art. So the things that I notice about yours is that the other form of contrast that you're using is you're differentiating the background and the foreground character by the level of detail, right? Like the
Yeah.
background, there's way more detail than in the character in the foreground, and obviously
Yeah.
that's because the character is the focal point. But that's one way that you can draw attention to something is you put a whole bunch of detail around something that doesn't have as much detail.
Yeah, heck yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that. Like sometimes I'll even try putting a thicker line weight around the characters over the background and breaking it up that way. But I like this clean art style because I can do a lot more with colors on it than if it's like
Hmm.
rendered or cross hatched out. So yeah, I can show you another page if you like.
Yeah, let's keep going. Oh
This is
damn, dude.
another more
Holy
detailed page.
shit. How long does a page like this take you?
I mean, this one took me a fair while. Like, it's hard to know exactly how long it took because I was working on commissions in between.
Hmm.
But I reckon if I was working on it solid, maybe 2 days for the line work and possibly 2 to 3 days for the colors. Like, this is pretty complicated, sort of city background. But
So are you not yeah, can you zoom in on that but just like keep it yeah, zoom in on it and don't move it cuz I think the video's
yeah,
taking a moment to catch up, let the detail come in. Damn, fuck, man. Okay, so are you at all concerned about like um like wanting to get books out more regularly? Like, have you considered just collaborating with somebody to help you do the colors or something? Because like the thing that we like
yeah,
about like Kentaro and whatnot is like they put out a ton of work, and so I'm
yeah.
curious. what you're thinking is, because it can take so long to do like one page.
Yeah, well, I can't really afford to hire anyone at the moment, but
Yeah.
if like say my Andromenoids book takes off, I'd probably hire like a color flatter who does like
Yeah.
the sort of flat base colors because that takes me the most time. And if I get that out the way, like it's a pretty easy, but it's like monotonous to do.
Uh-huh.
So if I just got someone to do that, and then I put my other colors, like all the shading and the lighting effects over the top, like that would
Hmm.
help out my process a lot. But
So this is
yeah, at the
another.
moment,
So
what's
this
that?
is another. Sorry, this is another property that you own. This is not a client's work. This is like this
No,
is your.
this is my own product I'm working on. So Kozor
Oh,
was my own product, and Drumanoids is my own product.
okay. So
So
you. So technically, if you get a couple of books out like this that are at this level,
yeah,
then that pretty much sets the standard for like finding your colorist.
yeah, heck yeah, pretty much. Like I'd still like to do the colors and everything myself if I could, but
Hmm.
like that's why I think like a flatter, like you know what flat colors are, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that would just help out the process, and then I'd be able to go over top and still keep the same look
Hmm.
and consistency. Like I think Kentaro Miura had helpers out, which are now doing the Berserk series after he's passed away
Hmm.
to help keep that look. So
Yeah.
yeah.
This is an insane amount of work, man. Are you using 3D models for your background? Are you dropping 3D models and like stuff from Blender into the background and tracing over it, or are you
No
just
man.
you're
I
freehanding this? Don't tell me you're freehanding this. That would be too much work.
man, I got like a perspective grid that I made up myself
Hmm.
to like sort of paste in, and I just draw it up all from scratch. I
Okay.
actually think it would take longer doing 3D models and stuff than just drawing out freehand.
Really?
Because yeah, I mean it's just fun to do the little details and stuff.
Okay.
So
Wow. It's really impressive, man. Super impressive.
yeah, thanks, man.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
Yeah. Uh,
Oh wow. Yeah. It's exceptional.
yeah, thanks, man. So there's like the sort of fire effects and the different glow effects I put on this page as well, which can take up a bit more time to get looking
Totally.
right. So if you
Totally.
notice, like there's these grates up here that sort of glow as well, which add on to the process, but it works out in the end.
Damn. Yeah. It's phenomenal, man. Okay. Can we
Yeah,
can we see
okay.
can we see the next one?
The next one.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
see what else let's see what else you got.
Yeah,
Okay.
this was like one of the older original pages I done for it.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, heck yeah. Like I want my Andromenoids book to be sort of like a more action-packed, like fun book, like over the
Mhm.
top, like sort of like the sexiness, the
Mhm.
guns, the monsters, like sort of like classic 90s sort of thing.
Totally. Yeah, I get the classic 90s vibe from the way it is that you've set the shot up. You got this demon shooting missiles and stuff.
Yeah,
The eye patch with the headset, that's very 90s.
yeah.
Very.
Well, I love like manga a lot. So
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of like Ghost in the Shell
Oh,
and the I think Masamune Shiro is the
mhm,
artist on it. So I
mhm.
reference his work a lot and his designs. So, but
So when
like the
you're
eye patch is more. like a manga anime eye patch, I think.
Mm-hmm. So whenever you're drawing these, you usually have like some artist reference pulled up to be like, okay, this is the level of finish I want this page to be at.
Yeah, it's more for like the designs and stuff, and like so even the rockets, I'll get up like I'll find like real life photo reference of like rockets and like guns and stuff to
Mm-hmm.
reference from. And I have a big reference sheet file
Mm-hmm.
of all the different elements I want to add into it and like make up my own design around that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not totally sure how I come up with the sort of rocket smoke. I think that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like looking at how others do it and kind of coming up with it on my own and how I want to
Mm-hmm.
implement it. And I got like the little fire embers as well. So yeah,
Wow.
pretty fun to do.
Yeah, man. You got Jesus, dude. You got some awesome work. Okay, so we got one more there. You got a inks and a flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one of the other characters in it.
Oh man.
And yeah, you can sort of see how these city bits turn out. It's it's cool in this queen cell because I can focus a lot more on just the design of the shapes
Mm-hmm.
and things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I referenced the Spaz shotgun from like Half-Life 2 or something
Hell yeah.
because I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. And then these are the colors for it.
Very nice.
Basically.
We talked about this before, but like, how are you doing the colors again? Like, why is it that you're able to get this? You say you're using Photoshop. Why are you not using Clip? There's a specific reason why.
Yeah, so with my colors, try not to go to, but you can see on like her breasts on the suit, there's like clear cuts. So I use
Okay.
like sort of layers, like use a selection tool,
Hmm.
Control H it to hide the selection, and then just gradient it out to do the shading. And
Okay. Couldn't you do that with just a lasso tool and like one of the soft brushes? Couldn't you do it with that or no?
so with Clip Studio, well, that's another thing. It doesn't have my same Photoshop brushes I can put into it. And the selection tool, you can't actually press like Control H to hide the selection. And so I
Okay.
sort of need to like hide it so it's not like distracting me from making sure it's like blending and shading properly. So I just found there's like little things like that that Photoshop does that makes it much more easy to do color.
Okay.
But then in Clip Studio, Clip is much more easy to do like line work and sort of inks and stuff. So
Interesting. Okay. But you would say like so you would say it has less to do with the capability of Clip to create to create that kind of look. It has more to do with your familiarity with what you like about Photoshop and the color.
yeah, pretty much. Like
Okay.
I've noticed Clip has like very similar like layout and like layers and color to Photoshop. It's
Hmm.
just like little different things that I prefer about Photoshop for my particular style and working method. So
Okay. Okay. That
yeah,
makes
that's
sense.
pretty much it.
Okay. Cool, man. Dude, your work is awesome. Everybody who's listening to this podcast, as usual, I always put people's links down in the description box of these channels, so you can always check out their work, follow them, support them, buy his book. All that stuff's in the description box. Since you showed us your art, let me share my screen and we'll take a look at some of our influences and we'll
Yeah,
talk
okay.
about that. Give me 1 second here, and then we'll go after we do this. All right, so I've got a cut. We'll talk about these two guys first.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Yeah, so Frazetta and Joe Mad. So how would you say? Because I mean, everybody's been influenced by Frazetta, and I feel like I can see some influence from Joe Mad. But like, what do you? What is
Yeah,
your what
I
is your take
don't.
on these two?
I think I know Joe Mad.
Hmm.
Like I've heard of the name. I haven't actually checked it out that much, to be honest.
Okay.
But Frank Frazetta, man, is like classic. Like Boris Vallejo, Julia Bell as well had very
Hmm.
similar work. So I mean, Frank Frazetta is just great for like anatomy reference, basically,
Hmm.
and he does great colors. I think for my Dark Fantasy Kozor book, I referenced the colors on Frazetta's work, and that's how I came up with different color palettes, basically, because it has a nice like real like earthy sort of tone to it, like the colors he uses.
Hmm.
So
What do you think? What do you think about referencing him for like the storytelling elements that he puts in his work?
Man, I don't actually think I've read a comic with Frazetta's work
Well, I mean,
in it
like the
actually.
I mean, I'm like the visual storytelling of like an
Oh
image,
yeah.
right? Like,
Uh yeah, I think he's great at doing the poses and the action. Like I remember David Finch had like a blog post or a tutorial talking about composition, right?
mhm,
And he mentioned Frazetta's work, and this one on I think the right,
mhm,
uh it has the triangle composition.
yep,
So that's what it's sort of like leading the eye to the main character, and then you have the characters down the bottom.
mhm,
So that's a lot of the stuff I learned about. But I think I looked at more a lot of Frazetta's work, which is more the anatomy and the
mhm.
posing sort of stuff I'd look at in the colors. So
Yeah, so I've been writing up some stuff on composition and visual storytelling, and I was using this piece that's on the right as like an example of like the storytelling that you can do, because when I've noticed, and I've heard this whenever I did an animation class as well, is
yeah,
that you the point, the highest point of a dramatic scene is right before or right after something has happened, right? Like
yeah,
in this image, in both of these images, something has just happened or something is about to happen, right? And
that's a good
those
point.
those are like the reason why it is that is so impactful is because it involves the player's imagination, right? So like what we're trying to do as storytellers is we're trying to tap into that empathy that the viewer has with the characters, because a lot of the times we think of empathy, we think of like compassion, but really empathy means I'm imagining myself in your shoes, right? And
Yeah,
the way it is that you do that is you give the information, you give more information to the viewer than the characters in the scene, right? So, and that starts to get the wheels turning in their head because they want this scene to be resolved, and so their mind is like figuring out the rest of the image. So, like the image on the right, we see that we've got this guy who's pretty much dead in the center, and he's getting ready for the two guys that are climbing up on the rocks in front of him. But right behind him, Frazetta decides that he's going to do it like he's going to illustrate a millisecond before this guy grabs his hair and pulls him back and stabs him with this knife, right? And so
yeah,
it's pulling you into it because you're imagining what's going to happen next, you know um and
yeah, man. Damn, I feel like you just told me something. That's pretty amazing. You noticed all that about it.
yeah, I mean, I've been putting like a lot of time into like trying to understand visual storytelling, like
Yeah,
um because like on my channel I have I've got a bunch of different stuff that you would probably be interested in. Like I've basically been going through. I went through Blade Runner and Minority Report and started to break them down in terms of like visual storytelling, but like just story in general.
What
Um,
did you learn from Blade Runner? Because that's a great movie.
so I guess this is my chance to plug my comic then.
Yeah, heck yeah.
uh,
I don't think I've seen much of your work yet, so I'm interested to see it.
yeah, I'm not like super detailed with the stuff like you are, man. But I'll go and I'll pull up my Gumroad and show people. So okay, so what I've been doing is I've been doing these Philip K. Dick files books. So Philip K. Dick is the writer of uh, the book "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," which got turned into Blade
Oh
Runner.
yeah,
And so I've been taking his short stories. This the line work and everything in this is pretty old. This is like a year ago. So it's not representative of my style now. Um, but this is a short story about a man that's driving to work and he finds a dead body hanging from a lamppost.
man,
And
I
it's in the.
actually love the those images of the top panel, like the close up of the eye and stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Like that is great sort of scene layout, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I was doing the line work for this, it wasn't, it wasn't, I wasn't putting a ton of time into it. I was trying to like just get through books and figure out what
Yeah,
it felt like to do a book. But so this short story is from Philip K. Dick, and it's basically about this guy who drives to work one day and he passes by a town center and he sees a dead body hanging from a lamppost, but nobody seems to be aware that it's there. Everybody's just walking around like it's not there, and he can't figure out if he's losing his mind or if he's like seeing through some parallel dimension or what.
yeah,
Um,
that's interesting.
so I'm a huge fan of Philip K. So you were asking me what I learned about Blade Runner.
Yeah,
There's a lot of different things it is that I learned, man. I mean, uh, Philip K. Dick was a really interesting guy because he had had like a series of very mystical experiences that inspired a lot of the books and stuff that he made. And so he felt like he was getting like direct downloads from some other dimension. And he wrote a book called The Exegesis of Philip K. Dick. And or well, it wasn't a book that was meant to be published. It was basically his journal entries, and
yeah,
all the journal entries were basically him talking about these mystical experiences that he had had, and he was trying to understand what it is that happened to him. And he was a very skeptical guy, and so
yeah.
he couldn't figure out like the characters in his stories are very much like him. Like he couldn't figure out if he was having some sort of a spiritual insight or if he was losing his mind. And so in the Blade Runner analysis that I have on this YouTube channel, I basically I'm looking at the Blade Runner film and then I'm going through his journals and I'm looking for the inspiration and for like the tie-ins with Blade Runner and how the film and how this relates to his journal entries and how it relates to other works that he's done because Blade Runner is it's such a huge cultural milestone.
Oh
Um,
heck yeah.
and this is my other one. This one has way better line work, and I'm about to finish up my third book. Um, so this was like his idea with the Golden Man. So this whole comic series, I should say, it's an anthology series,
Man,
and the
I
and
had
the
no
first
idea these other stories he had.
yeah,
Like
dude,
this,
he has a ton of like public domain short stories that are like really off the wall, really cool. Um,
that's
so this
awesome.
one, this one is his. Basically, it's like an X-Men story, and So it's very much set up like after a world war, there's like a nuclear fallout, and it changes people. So it's a pretty interesting. Here, I've got, yeah. This is one of
Yeah,
my
it
own.
looks freaking awesome, man.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's so I've got the first two books out for free that people can download. I put those in the description box. I'm gonna have the third one out pretty soon. But like I'm super interested in his stories because his stories are like they're really strange, um, and they're really about like what is reality? What is this experience that we're having that we call reality? Like what does that mean? For each person, it can mean something completely different.
Yeah,
So
man, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check out more of that stuff later. Honestly,
yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend people check out Philip K. Dick's books, like his novels and stuff like that. Like everything that I'm doing with this is like a tribute to him. Like I'm doing like these film analysis of the films and then the comic books. And I plan on at some point I want to put them all together and then kickstart them into like a book that fans can have. But for now, I'm just making them just as my passion project and just being like, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to make comics with this. I'm not going to be precious with it. I'm going to get the stuff out, serve a community of people that are fans of Philip K. Dick, build an audience, and then take those lessons and go into my own thing with that, with what it is that I learned from doing these comic books.
yeah, heck yeah, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, that's great. And dude, I like the that hanging man one. The way you're laying out the panels and the close up shots.
Hmm.
Like that's cool. That's my type of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think I enjoy the directing part of things maybe more than the drawings sometimes. The drawings are it's always fun,
yeah.
but it's also like it's super time consuming. I've thought about like what it would it be like to have you ever we were talking about before like you wanted to do like level design. Have you thought about doing like I don't know like have you ever thought about doing film work or anything like do you see the stuff that people are doing in Unreal like in terms of making their own films and stuff like that?
Uh, I don't think I've seen many films in Unreal, but like I know my brother Clayton's talked about, man, we should just make a horror movie. They ain't doing them good enough these days, like a kind of
Yeah,
shit. And I'm
yeah.
like even if I could, I don't know. There's something special about comic books in particular. Like I've learned so much about them, and I just like I kind of like owning a comic book, being able to open it up and you can just read it whenever. So,
Mhm.
but I mean, you never know. Like one day, like maybe an animation would be cool to do, like a anime or something. Possibly
Totally.
someday would be awesome if I get that famous. But I'll probably hire out a team to do that for me instead of learning it myself.
Yeah, that would be an insane task to try to like make an animation by yourself.
Yeah, heck yeah.
You would have to have a team.
Yeah, definitely. From what I've heard about it, it's pretty like crazy intense trying to put it all together.
Oh, dude, totally.
Yeah.
Like I I I've met people that do animation and I mean it takes a long time to get anything done. Um, let me pull up some Kentaro and maybe some Bernie, and then we'll go ahead and close it out. I'll
Yeah, heck yeah.
let you get back to doing what you're doing. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I feel like this visual storytelling is like the unsung and really the most important part of what it is that we do as like visual storytellers, because that's the word. It's visual storytelling, right? Um,
Yeah,
and a lot of the times we can get so caught up on um, like the technical aspects of something that we start to forget uh, like what we're supposed to be doing with the technical aspect of it. It's only supposed to serve the story. It's not. Um, I mean, it is the central focal point of what we're doing. But
yeah, heck yeah. I mean, a lot of the story can be told visually as well, I think,
mhm.
also. So that's what's
Yeah,
great about comics.
yeah,
But
totally. It's all about the visual storytelling. Where
yeah,
is?
heck yeah, man.
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's all right.
Actually, let's look at some Capullo because I can't find my Kintaro. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's fine. Dude, Kapoor is a great artist.
Oh,
I
totally.
thought his work on Haunt was his best, actually. I didn't think his Batman stuff was as great.
I've got some I've got some Batman stuff right here that we're going to take a look at. I agree with what you're saying. I love the gritty uh, Greg Capullo, like when he's got the images of Spawn where it's like really gross and like crazy looking.
Yeah, heck yeah.
But I do like the pared down look of these Batman pages that he's done. So what do you see whenever you look at this, like in terms of storytelling?
I mean, on the first page of Matuika, like it's very stark contrast between the blacks and the whites.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think even for this Batman comic, it seems a lot like there's not as much rendering, and he's just mainly focusing on that stark contrast and the shapes of the characters.
Hmm.
Um, it's even a lot more cartoon-like than his other stuff. His work's already kind of cartoony,
Hmm.
but this is very cartoony now.
And how would you compare that to the other image? Like, how would you explain that the contrast between these two? And like, what do you think his thoughts were?
Man, I like the other image a lot more. Like I feel like the other one's almost a lot more like his haunt work, much
Yeah.
more detailed.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like it feels like the other image has a lot more of a tone. Like it feels a lot more real
Hmm.
than the first image. But I guess the first image has a lot more action,
Hmm.
so you probably want a more cleaner background so you can sort of animate it in your head, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like in this action scene, uh, he the he doesn't want to get your eye caught up on detail because
Yeah,
he's moving you through the panels pretty quickly because it's an action scene. So your eyes are naturally going to move through the panel quickly. So he doesn't have the need to do a complicated background.
yeah, exactly. And it's like in the second image, it is a lot more focused on the environment.
Hmm.
Whereas the first image, you don't really know what the environment is, other than I think the last panel on that page almost looks like pipes for like a factory or something or
Hmm.
underground. So
Yeah, there's quite a few things that I notice in terms of like the composition of these two, which is pretty interesting. Um, so he's going left in the whole image, and that's something that like if you're doing comics for the first time, it's easy to confuse like which side you're looking at the character.
Yeah.
It would be confusing to the reader if he had him all of a sudden facing to the right on this panel down here, right? It would, because everything is moving to the left. Like this gesture is moving to the left. He's moving to the left here. Um, this one, I mean, it's you could say it's neutral, but this one he's moving to the left, and then this final panel right here, he's moving to the left as well. Like you can imagine that if, and this is something it is that you can run into real easily, is
Yeah.
like you can confuse yourself by pointing him in different directions, and then the reader doesn't know how to orient him in the environment in their mind.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty good point.
Hmm. Yeah. So like, because I feel like everything is kind of leading up to this last panel down here. And with this last panel right here, like he has these leading lines that are diagonal, because diagonal is, it's action, right?
Yeah.
So, and those diagonal lines, uh, they go with the diagonal nature of the staircase. And so it's pretty smart that he set this scene up to have so many diagonal lines and diagonal shapes, um, while at the same time, he has this awesome pose for Batman.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, so I've been doing this on my channel where I look at other people's work, and I try to break down and notice different things, and I can feel it. I can feel it like really getting into my own work, like the different decisions that they're
Yeah.
making, like
Yeah. You
on.
seem to be pretty good at analyzing it, man. Like I'm learning a ton from you right now. So
Thank you, man. I want to turn my YouTube channel into like a community of people that are coming together and just like talking about this stuff. Um, and I mean, nerding out about this stuff is what it is that I do. And I like to do film analysis stuff because I also think that the film analysis, it opens up your mind too. Like I have on my YouTube page an interview I did with this guy named Rob Adger, and another
yeah.
one with this guy named Reinstall Paul. And if you get a chance to, if you like films like The Shining or games like Silent Hill, like I would
Oh,
recommend.
dude. Silent
Yeah,
Hill's great.
yeah, I'll send you the podcasts I've done with these guys, because both of them, they get really in depth with like breaking down the story, the symbolism,
Yeah.
the way it is that they communicate the symbolism and the subtext of the story visually. And I mean, it's all fascinating stuff, and it's all a resource for you if you're doing something creative. Um,
It's great. So are they filmmakers as well?
well, I think Rob has made some films.
Yeah.
Reinstall Paul, he's more of a writer, and he's just done a bunch of YouTube analysis stuff, and then he has a store that he sells his books and whatnot. I'll actually include the links to Reinstall Paul and the Rob Adger podcast in the description box too. But yeah, Rob, I think he started off as just like doing these video analysis of like all of Kubrick's work, like The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut, and he goes deep into them. Like I can't even sum it up because I couldn't do it justice. But he does some pretty in depth analysis of the films that will blow your mind. Like
Yeah, that's awesome.
the sniper scene in Full Metal Jacket is, the way he interprets it is it's basically like it was Kubrick's way of putting his theory of John F. Kennedy being assassinated by more than one person. Like the scene is a reenactment of the John F. Kennedy assassination, but from like multiple angles. It's very complicated to explain, but it's really cool.
Yeah. No, it's cool, man. I'll definitely have to check that out. Sounds great.
So yeah, let's make some comments on this one, and then I'll go ahead and I'll let you go. So you'd say like
Yeah.
the detail on this one pulls you in more. The
Yeah,
one.
I mean, pretty oriented to more towards detail sort of things.
Hmm.
And I guess like in a way this page is almost more establishing the scene and environment in a way compared to the last one. Like the last one's like typical action page.
Hmm.
But I mean it's interesting.
Hmm.
It almost seems like different styles compared to the first and this one. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely feels like a different style. Um, it's I mean, it feels like I guess an exaggeration of that style. What's interesting to me is like
Yeah.
we have the Joker who has all this detail, but you can see the kind of cartoonish
Yeah,
shapes that he's
Batman.
using. They're the same as in this panel. Like the Batman images that he's doing, they almost feel like a step between the way that the animation series would do these very simple shapes with like
Yeah.
the triangle eyes, and it's kind of a step in between that and his more detailed style.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's a good observation.
And like it's also interesting that like with these other characters we have um, this very detailed background, and then with our Batman character we have this white background, right? And we have that here too, but to me this feels like a contrast, a pretty stark
Yeah,
contrast.
definitely. Like he's almost using more shape than actual like design.
Total, yeah. He's using shapes to design it rather than going in for like crazy shading.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, I like the way that he does the. I mean, he does everything traditional, right? Like he's not using clip. He's using he's just using traditional pen and ink, from what I know. But that
Yeah.
the line work and the shapes that he's using are pretty fantastic.
Is are these part of the same Batman book? Or is one like later on?
I imagine that this must be from a different book. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, if you're watching this and you know, please drop it in the comments because I have no idea what books these are from. I haven't read a Batman comic in forever, but yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he's very so like when you look at something like this, like the face and the hand and the gun, like what do you think about the design decisions that he's making here? Like what do you think it is that makes it so iconic?
And I mean it's almost like a classic straight on like side shot. Like
Hmm.
there's no angle to it. Like he's using more shapes still, but
Hmm.
then again he's used the render lines inside of it as well.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of like what makes it more classic looking. Like if he was showing the Joker on like an angled sort of look, it changed the feeling up of it immediately. But because it's like straight side on or straight front on,
Hmm.
that's how you'd get that sort of look.
Yeah, totally. Like I guess we could say that like the work on Batman then, from what we're looking at on these two pages, is it's a mix between it's like a sidestep between a more graphic, like not a graphic design, but a more graphic illustrative style with his more detailed ink work,
Yeah.
right? I mean, to me, what I see, like I've seen this with a lot of like, what's been helping me recently is like the character design, looking at character designers and looking at the decisions that they're making. And I've talked about this on my channel before, but like if you look at just the design of this character, there's a couple of different things that you can notice. Like, let me zoom out here. Um, there's always the decision to make uh, big shapes and small shapes. Like, okay, like you have a character that's like based on a shape, right? Like you have a character that's based like on a triangle or a
Like a
circle.
silhouette and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you want to take that same shape and you want to repeat it throughout the image, uh, throughout the actual drawing, right? Like, um, I actually don't know if these are maybe the best examples of this. Um, but I mean, I guess you could say like the cowl that he wears. You know, this is a repeating shape that's also on his utility belt, but then it's also on his chest as well. Um,
Yeah, you could probably say it a lot about his mask, right? Like
mhm,
in this panel on the second page, it's like, how do you know it's Batman? Well, it's the
mhm,
shape of how the mask goes around his mouth,
mhm,
and his head is almost like a cylinder with the 2 points on top of his head.
mhm.
So I think that's how it works. And the Joker's kind of like a pretty skinny, stick-like figure of a character. So that's how you could like sort of tell him from a distance, and probably like the shape of his mouth, like the smile.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. The you could say the expressions on the face between Joker and Batman. I mean, he's using a lot of different elements to contrast the two. You know, it's
yeah,
interesting to
yeah,
see that, like, if we look at the actually, if we look at the mouth of all the Batman, it's all kind of curved down, right? Like it's
yeah,
all got this downward kind of thing, whereas the Joker, it's a full on smile, right? But it's he's obviously extending it, and he's giving you the impression that like he almost doesn't have any cheeks by dropping everything into the shadows here.
heck yeah. Well, he's like the way he's done the teeth on the Joker. He's blacked out like all the gums, so it's
Hmm.
kind of like almost monster-like with the stark contrast of his teeth smiling.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it makes him look more evil and menacing looking.
Definitely. And the other thing that I like about the design here is that uh, you know we have like this mix of like yeah, cartoony and realism. Like it's an interesting step between the two. Like the way that he draws it is an interesting step between the two, because it feels like to me, I actually think that these are really iconic Batman images because like it
Hmm.
feels like the way it is that Batman always was. Like it's a mix between cartoonish and realistic. Like this image of the Joker, the rendering itself, it feels like it's that half step in between the cartoon and the realistic. And then the gun and the length of the gun and the smile on Joker's face, um, those really sell it as like as something that is
Yeah, okay.
weird cartoonish. You know, like it's an element that adds to the character design that takes it to another level.
Yeah, man, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool, man. Well, this was fun chatting. It was fun like breaking down artist work, and I hope I hope it was fun for people watching it. Do you want to plug your stuff real quick?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just working on the Andromenoids book at the moment. I'll
Hmm.
probably be campaigning that early next year. But
Hmm.
if you follow me on Twitter, which is where I put most of my updates,
Hmm.
I'm Korey Barton 101. So it's
Okay.
Korey with a K.
Okay.
And I'll probably set up an email list sort of thing soon as well, hopefully, if I get the time. And then I'll
Dude,
be able to send out updates through that for
set
it.
up would you not do you not have a Gumroad set up? Because Gumroad gets the emails for you, and then
Oh, yeah.
you can just write a newsletter directly through there.
I do. That's cool. No, I haven't used Gumroad before. I know Clayton uses it a lot, so I could talk to him about it. I was thinking we have our Barton Bros Studios website, and hopefully having a page on that to show off all the cool art for
Hmm.
it, and put up the sign up page on there first.
Hmm.
Because I wasn't totally sure. Like, I want to use Indiegogo again, but I have heard they're like there's been issues with them, like sort of censoring, or what do you call it? They like ghost like a page to where it won't come up on Google,
Really?
and it'll be a
Why
lot
do you-
harder to actually find it if the campaign's been censored. So I'm a bit worried about that, especially for my Andromenoids book, because it's bit more mature.
Okay.
So
So
I'm hoping that doesn't happen to me exactly, but I've been thinking about like Kickstarter and other places you can campaign books as well. So I'll see what happens. But I'll have an email list on our own website pretty soon.
okay. And I know you got a YouTube channel. Are you active with that at all?
Uh, I don't really have a YouTube channel. I'm more active on Clayton's channel, his How to Draw Comics channel,
Okay.
and we have a Barton Bros Studio YouTube channel as well. So I reckon when I start campaigning, I'll probably be up on that a lot more, talking about the book and probably
Okay.
interviewing people and stuff as well.
Okay. Cool. Cool,
So
man.
yeah,
Well, I'm going to include all your links and any references to stuff that I've mentioned in the podcast. I'm going to include all that in the description box below. So if you want to check out Corey's work, get his books and whatnot, all the links are down there. And
thank you.
thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for watching. Thank you, Corey, for jumping on and kicking it with me for a little bit. This was fun.
Yeah, it's been good. I learned a lot from you, so I'm gonna
Well,
have to
thank
do some research or something.
All right, guys. I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Take it easy.